Hey guys, welcome back to another testing video. I'm going to show something that I've never shown on the channel before, and that's going to be a stress test using the Viper Strategy software. This is giving us the ability to stress test and back test a lot of these strategies with real casino data. Now, if you're not familiar, we're going to do a test with Bob's high side splits. Now, the original version that he built was pretty aggressive and the bets got pretty high really quick, but it did survive a long test run and it did make over $33,000 in profit within that test run. Now, if you're interested in seeing that original video, I will put the link down in the description below. And also, I did make a variation. So I wanted to dial it back a little bit, make it a little bit more conservative while still having a super long progression with it. So I'm going to do a stress test on what I'm calling Bob's High Side Splits 2.0. And I just dialed that back. So it's not the original 50 levels of progression. I dialed it back down to 37 levels of progression. Still a very long progression and still has a lot of coverage. So let's go ahead and jump into it and we'll get everything set up. So with the software, you could go and grab a lot of this casino data yourself. So whatever casino that you prefer to play with, you could go ahead and collect that. You could save it to your computer and then upload it into the software. So that's what I did. I'm using casino data that I use on my personal favorite casino online. Okay, so let's get everything set up and then we will run the test. Okay, so you can see down here, I did make another version called it Bob's 3.0, slightly longer progression, and I just shuffled the bets around a little bit, the bet placements, because I feel like starting with the splits wasn't ideal because the coverage wasn't there. So if you're interested in seeing that video is coming up very soon, probably within the next couple days. I'm going to post that one. So it's going to follow this video. And with that, the biggest difference, the biggest takeaway that I did with that one is I started with the high side bet, but then I went with double street coverage first. And then after that, I went corners because double streets covering 6 at a time. I'm trying to get that coverage down at a lot quicker, if that makes sense. And then I go corners, then I go streets, and then I go splits instead of starting with splits. With that being said, let's go ahead and get everything set up and then we'll run the test. And again, I have a data set. You can see right here, I have a bankroll starting at $2,000. So we're going to use $2,000. We're going to run it through this test. Okay, let me pause the test real quick. We're going to run it through this test. And if you look at the top of the screen, you'll see that I have a large data set of spins that I've collected. It's a 7,000 spins collected all into one file. So if this ends up being a super long test, I'll go ahead and fast forward it so you could go through it. You could watch it quicker, right? So you don't have to sit there and wait the whole entire time. So let's go ahead and start the test. And then after the test run, I will go ahead and we will go over the stats and we will review what happens. Okay, so the idea behind this, again, we're running through this test and until the strategy fails or goes through all the spins. Okay, again, 7,000 spins. Let's see how this run goes. Okay, guys, so that's going to wrap up the test. And I do want to talk about some things, and I want to highlight some things so you guys could understand a little more clearly. Now, this was a massive test run. This ended up going a total of, so we started with that $2,000 bankroll, as you can see right there. We did eventually bust the strategy. So you can see the total spin count. This went all the way up to 4,389 spins, okay, which is massive, right? Here's the thing. So it did boil over a handful of times, right? So it quote unquote busted. I got right here 14 bust, but that is not a clear picture. Let me explain. So looking at the results right here, you can see right here, this is going to be where we started our $2,000 bankroll, and this is current profit. So we did peak out. Now you can see on the screen everything that I logged. Every time it boiled over, I just took a note of it. That way I could visually show you. This is what I want to say is we did peak out at a total high of $6,090. So if you subtract the initial bankroll of $2,000, that's a positive $4,000, a little over $4,000, right? Now, you've seen once it first busted, what it's trying to do, right? Because this is all in one session based off this high of over $6,000 or wherever it was. So based off that first one, what it's doing, and it's trying to get back to that new session high before it resets. That's why we accumulated so many different busts, because it just continued to go through the entire progression trying to go back and get back to that point. Okay, so I want to go over a couple things and I want to highlight why we test like this. Okay, so there's a couple different reasons why we test like this: to simulate long sessions and to kind of see where the breaking point is, but seeing a broader picture of how your strategy goes on the long run. Does it win more times than it doesn't? You know, so this could be done with any strategy you choose. So if you guys think you have any great strategy out there, resilient strategies, go ahead and let me know. I have a email set up, roulette.strategy777@gmail.com. I could put that into the software and we could run a stress test on it to kind of see how it performs. Now, there's a couple key takeaways that I do want to talk about why we test like this, right? This is a testing channel. We don't just test for 15 minutes. We want to put energy in the strategies that are good, solid strategies. So what this test does for us is it exposes weaknesses, right? So every strategy will have a breaking point. It's just a matter of finding that breaking point. So we, through the stress test, it really reveals exactly where and how it fails. Then that helps you understand whether the failure comes from long losing streaks, you know, maybe table limits could be another factor, or bankroll exhaustion, right? So you just run out of bankroll. Another point, this test shows true resiliency, right? So like a strategy might look good in the short run, right? 10, 15-minute clips. Oh, it makes a lot of money, you know, but how does it perform in longer runs, right? So stress testing over thousands of spins shows how it holds up under, you know, sustained play, basically. So you'll see whether it survives normal variance or it collapses under, you know, long streaks. Also, another key point: risk management insight. What does this mean? This simply just shows the worst case scenario, you know, because you're not going to get lucky all the time, right? So it shows how much bankroll you realistically need to support this type of strategy. So let's say you need to weigh the risk to reward, and then that level of risk you're taking on for any given strategy. Also, it's a reality check. Sometimes people see a strategy and they just run straight to the casino because they've seen a 15-minute or 10-minute, a quick little, you know, and they just go and go to the casino. Oh, it's going to win money. And I'm sure a lot of those strategies will win money, but this gives you a reality check. Many strategies will seem profitable over small sample sizes, right? So if I just showed you that beginning clip and I could have, you know, stopped it at $1,000 profit and shows you that, but this stress test is revealing everything over a long test. So many spins. So stress testing separates temporary luck from, sustainable performance. So keep that in mind as well. A couple other key points is it really helps, improve and adjust strategies. So many of you guys know I don't just show a bunch of different strategies constantly over this video, over my channel. I really want to focus on the meat and potatoes, right? The good strategies. And with your guys' help, you guys give a lot of great feedback, right? So I do have a different variation, like I mentioned earlier in the video, of I think not starting with splits, but starting with those double streak coverages. And I think that's going to be a solid adjustment, right? Because that's going to help us improve and adjust by seeing how this performs in the long run. Then we can make those tweaks, maybe the betting sizes, maybe the progression rules. We could have stop loss points. You could see this really held stagnant on the high side, maybe switching the bets back and forth. It's some of these things are just some things to think about, right? And it kind of turns that guesswork into data-driven refinement is really what we're going for here. And then last but not least, the biggest point I really want to, explain here is going to be building confidence. Right now, we know, and I've ran plenty of strategies that I'm like, this is foolproof. This happens to win for me more times than it doesn't, and it still fails periodically. There are some that have higher resiliency. So what this stress test does is it shows you the volatility of this strategy, but if it performs great, it also builds that confidence before real play. That's why I always say test before you invest. Really have confidence in that. Knowing your system's behavior under extreme conditions gives you that peace of mind, okay? But it also gives you, an idea of how it's going to perform. So like if you see on average through some of these test runs that, it only goes down about $200, well, guess what? Maybe that's that new bankroll you could set up at $200 as a stop loss versus risking an entire $1,000 bankroll and letting it go through all those progressions, because you might be getting caught in a casino's trap, right? And then it's just a bad session. And then you get caught in that trap and then you just donated $1,000 to the casino. Versus knowing its habits, very well that on average, it only dips down about $200. Anything past that, you're like, you know what, that's the stop loss. Now, stopping there, that's a lot easier to make up a couple $100 versus $1,000 in future sessions, if that makes sense. Okay, so you go into real play with a clear expectation and it's not blind hope. So I just wanted to highlight some of that. Let me know what you guys think. If you guys like this type of test, let me know. Again, I do want to bring up, I am going to show the Bob's, what I'm calling Bob's high side splits 3.0. Again, that's covering the double streets first. I think the sequence is where this one is hurting. I've got some great feedback. So one of you guys emailed me and said, why have such a long progression? Because once you get past a certain level, you kind of get into that zone where it's diminishing returns, meaning it doesn't have, because it has a long progression, once you get past a certain level, it doesn't have that punching power to get you back into session profit. Then you're going to need multiple wins outweighing losses to get you back to that session high. So also that was some great feedback. So maybe, dialing it back where, maybe we just go up to 20 levels. If you're not in session profit at that point, that would be that point of diminishing returns, that threshold that triggers us to reset and then just make up the profit within those first 20 progressions, right? So let me know what you guys think. If you guys have any other feedback, of course, I listen to you guys. I read all your comments because you guys make this powerful. It's not about just one person, one strategy. It's coming together collectively as a community to really, because we all have the same goals, right? We want to make more money in the casino. We want to get money that they've taken from us previously. So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. And of course, till next time, guys, be cool, stay cool. Peace.